What are some of the best negotiating tactics you know of? Be willing to walk away. Allow awkward silences. Selectively ignore their input. Use negative body language to subtly discourage. Be willing to walk away. This is 100% the best tactic, but it requires having a solid alternate option, because if you walk away and end up having to come back to that table, it will cost you. Many others will probably jump in with these, but in general, 1. Know exactly what you want, what it is worth to you, what you are willing to give in exchange for it, and at what point you will walk away. 2. Be willing to walk away. 3. Articulate the value you are offering and why your request is reasonable. Frame everything around the value you can provide and the value you need to receive in turn. 4. You only get what you ask for. Set the bar high and back down to what you're really hoping for. Sometimes you may get way more than you expect simply by asking for it. Don't assume you know what the other party really wants. 5. Silence isn't bad. Use it to your advantage. People hate silence and tend to fill it. If you can sit for 15-20 seconds looking at people without saying anything to them, you will always have the upper hand. 6. Never make it personal or allow it to get personal. Redirect everything back to the topic on the table. I usually even say, listen, this is business. We are all here because we want to get this done. There is a way we can all leave today happy. 7. Don't settle. Getting a bad deal can be worse than getting no deal. 8. Remember that there is some gamesmanship involved. Walking in with a spreadsheet and saying, I need this or else is really poor strategy. You have to pre-sell a bit and frame the negotiation to prevent both parties from being blindsided. If anyone at the table is totally caught off guard by a request, the table wasn't set well to begin with and it's much more difficult to come to terms. 9. It's okay to say, number. The more quickly and clearly you establish realistic boundaries, the more productive the negotiation. You should also be quick to say, yes, when the other party makes a reasonable request and expect fair treatment in return. 10. Close. When an agreement has been reached, quickly recap each major point of agreement, which you will have taken copious notes on, and reconfirm. Then, hard close. We are all in agreement on these key points and we are all prepared to move forward, right? Any last minute objections or questions? No? Alright. We have a deal. So many people are combative when they enter negotiations, and that's really the underlying reason they fail. If you walk in with fair expectations and the mindset that everyone can and will get something they need in a fair exchange, it really helps the tone and positions you as confident and professional. The only one I use is be willing to walk away. If you are dealing with a professional who does this for a living, and you don't, you won't beat them. It's naive to think otherwise. I had a hospital that needed me to fill a position. They offered me a lowball salary. I told them I'd have to discuss it with my wife. Then they found out I had interviews set up for the next week. They came back with a much higher salary and a signing bonus if I signed by the end of the week. I asked for more money. They ended up accepting. When negotiating with young children, give them 2 options, but have both options result in what you want them to do happening. Too many options is hard on kids and they can't make a decision, leading to them taking a long time or throwing a tantrum, because the longer it takes, the more stressful it is, since they can feel the adults around them putting more and more pressure on them to make a choice. Being unable to make any choices of their own is also hard on kids, since it makes them feel like they have no control over what happens to them. This can make kids act out, be stubborn about completing a task, or throw tantrums. So by giving a child 2 options, they have limited items to pick from and therefore aren't overwhelmed, and they get to have a choice, so they feel like they have some control over their current situation. Do you want to wear the fireman shirt or the dog shirt? Either way, the kid puts on a shirt. Are you going to put on your seatbelt, or do I need to come back there and do it for you? Either way, the seatbelt gets fastened. Longer than normal pauses at opportune times. Practice awkward silences with people you know and don't let them make you uncomfortable. Be calm and straightforward with any answers. I see too many people make the mistake of a somewhat emotional response. Oh come on, there's no way at all. You're kidding, right? At the most, I'll use we both know that won't work. Then calmly list the reason why this option does not work for you, or why you feel that you do deserve whatever you're negotiating. Make it seem like a casual list, as if you just slid a piece of paper to them. $850 a month won't work for me. This is a nice property, but I do have an issue with the area. It's not bad, but the area that's 2 streets over is a little rough, which can, and probably will bleed over at some point. So while the house is nice, I am taking risk with my vehicles and property. So while I may not be able to rent a place this size in a better area, I will be able to find one that accommodates my needs. If you're willing to go down to $750, I'd be more than happy to move in as soon as possible, but $850 is a bit much for me. Legit said that to a landlord. Worked out fine. Didn't get emotional. Just said it like we were discussing the pros and cons of 2 different car models. Always ask for more. You might just get it, and if you don't, you may very well end up with what you wanted in the first place. Scenario: you make $15 an hour. You feel that you deserve $17. At your review, you ask for $20 an hour. They agree you're underpaid but not by $5 an hour. That's crazy. Instead they offer you $18. You accept and got more than what you were willing to accept. It is important to make sure the other party feels as if they won, or negotiated you down. This is why making a firm offer is not always ideal. Recently, I applied for a job and was offered $60 a year for the position. It is for a skilled position and required a ton of travel, like weekly flights out of state. I shot back with $85 a year. Unfortunately, they came back with $65 a year and refused to budge from there. It let me know there was little room for negotiation on their end, so I declined. Attorney here. Negotiate personal injury claims all the time. I am always the one with the money. 1. When the other side is talking, look them in the eye the entire time, and give them your undivided attention. Keep a neutral face, but nod and otherwise indicate interest when you have the opportunity. Many people just want the chance to feel like their side of the discussion has been received and understood. This will make any counterpoints you bring to bear much more powerful. 2. Eliminate emotion from the equation. If the other side says something that is calculated to upset you, do not react. Say okay or understood and then what's next. Most non-professionals cannot engage in an emotionless negotiation, and it hamstrings them. 3. When you play out your best arguments or the strongest evidence in your favor, do not spike the football. One of the hardest things to do when you have someone cornered is giving them a way to save face. Asian countries understand this very well. The last refuge of the defeated is an illogical unwillingness to concede. In almost any negotiation, they may know they have lost, but they still have the power to drag out the deal or the lawsuit or whatever. Giving them a way to bow out gracefully is critical. In legal negotiation, this often means you have to speak about bad facts in the abstract. The opponent's unfortunate situation is something that happened to them, not a position they put themselves in. If you maintain that polite fiction, you will get the deal. 4. 90% is an A. It was in college and it is in business. If you get 90% of what you want, you've won. Don't push it. 5. Never tell an intermediary how much money you have or what your bottom line deal would be. Intermediaries just want to seal a deal, and they will spend all your cash. If you ever have an intermediary who susses out your figures and then stops short of spending it all, use that individual in your next negotiation. That's a rare trait. 6. Come to negotiations as prepared as if you were headed into the courthouse or final arbitration. Knowledge is power, and granular familiarity with your best arguments will allow you to quickly disarm minor quibbles or potential sidetrack discussions which can break the overall deal. 7. Above all, treat the other side with complete respect. Respectful behavior by you will get you more accolades in the long run than any jolt of power you may feel from a single act of disrespect. The worst negotiators are the hotheads who assume the other side is always trying to cheat them, and thus treat adversaries as enemies. Be business professional, not in butthole, and you will win and keep winning. Fabulous. I'd love to work with you. Repeat your position at least 3 times without giving anything up. You'll be surprised at how often people bid against themselves. I negotiate for a living, claims adjuster, and it always surprises me how often repeating your position, with conviction, works. Have your BATNA prepared beforehand, which is your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. What is your best backup if this deal is on poor terms? For example, another car dealership which offered you a price. Use his info to plan your target point, where you want the deal to end up, and your resistance point, where you will walk away. Typically anything that isn't better than your BATNA. Studies have shown that having these 3 pieces of information typically improves the negotiated outcomes for people than if they didn't. Not only will they give you more confidence in your position, but many of the hardball tactics that try to trick you into a bad deal fall flat on their face when you know the exact dollar amount at which their deal is bad. What helped me recently was research and know the actual value of what you are purchasing, especially if it is a car or home. Don't be afraid to walk out, especially if you have a price you are wanting them to come down to and is reasonable, that is. $30K, stick a price down to $25K, not $30K to $10K on a brand new vehicle. Always have a number in your head that you are willing to pay for and do not accept anything that is above that. That's a toughie, especially with used cars, since some dealers give a heavily inflated price to begin with and some don't. I had one laugh at me for asking $5K off and another that happily offered it, beating KBB, when I merely asked for a price quote, not even giving them a number to target. The Mayans in Guatemala selling trinkets would ask what's your name. They try to develop a relationship to make you comfortable so then they can screw you over on the price. Try to find common ground, to which all parties agree, then move on from there based on the common ground. If we agree on this, then we can also agree on that, right? I'm a fan of a more integrative approach. Figure out a way to present the want as making the overall pie bigger, rather than taking a bigger slice for yourself. You develop stronger and better partnerships and relationships this way. Make sure both sides understand the issue being negotiated. Ask the other person to explain your point precisely enough that you agree they are correct. Then repeat for the other side. Once both sides agree on the details of the issue, negotiation can begin. I'm going to get downvoted for this, but Trump's tactic of punching in the face and negotiating from there works great. Taken less literally, negotiating very high and working down from there will almost guarantee the best case outcome for you. If they walk from the deal from the start, then you were never going to get a good deal to begin with. For the first job I got out of college, I was expecting a rate of $18 each. I said I would work for $28 each. Of course they said no way. We worked down to $25 and they agreed. If I started with $18 they would have happily agreed, and I would never have known they had the capacity to pay much more. I learned the same thing when I was being trained as a fundraiser for a charity. The biggest part of our job was to do crazy amounts of background research on the potential donor and figure out what their giving capacity is, and we would ask them for more than their known capacity, to get them down to their maximum giving potential. When I was in sales for a small business, a tactic one of the salesmen used when a customer made an offer on something was to make a counter offer for an exact oddball amount. It made the customer think that specific price was the exact price the owner would allow the item to be sold for and no less, so they didn't make any more counter offers. Example, an item is for sale for $200. The lowest price the owner will sell it for is $150. Customer offers $140. Salesman counters with $173.27. Customer agrees, because there is an assumption that there is some specific amount of discount the owner allows. I never did it, but for that guy that did, it worked 100% of the time. After about a year of working there, the owner quit taking offers on anything. The price was the price and sales staff had no authority to sell anything for other than the marked price, so it became a moot point. Ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos means you go based on credibility, you quote others and stuff. Pathos means you go based on emotions, like bringing up that a family member died from it. Logos means you go off facts and statistics, like saying that 48.5% of all statistics are made up. Be really freaking good at something in demand. Take LeBron for example. He is very good at basketball. There are 30 NBA franchises worth $1 billion plus each that want him on their team. So he gets the maximum salary, because if the Cavs said they won't pay him all that, then other franchises would be licking their chops. Make someone feel like the deal is their idea and know what leverage you have before going in. For example, never tell a car salesman what you are willing to pay for a car. You won't get a good deal for a car by just asking a dealer to lower their price. Alternatively, you can say, I am going to buy this car this week and I am talking to 5 other dealers. Your only leverage is competition from other dealers. Whoever gives me the best price gets the sale. So don't ask me what my budget is. Just give me your absolute best price and I will let you know by the end of the week who I am going with. Call a week later with a low offer and say if they beat it, they get the sale. I've bought some cheap cars this way. Personally, I always lowball an offer, less than I'd be willing to pay. Recently, I was on Kijiji, looking for Yakuza 0 since I've been hard pressed finding it around here and in Amazon. One day, I finally found a listing for $40. I didn't want to do that and would rather pay $35. So, I sent in an offer at $30. The main reason I do this is to create the illusion of pride. If I lowball, the seller will probably retaliate with a higher price. It'll be lower than the asking price but higher than mine. I then counter with what I'm willing to actually pay. This makes the seller think that they negotiated me up. However, I maintain a lower price obviously and usually, because of the price increase, they'll accept. In the case of Yakuza 0, they actually accepted the $30, so that's a possibility too. Some will not even accept your counter, and in this case, it's up to you to determine how much you want something. I still maintain a lower than asking price offer, but I'll pay more than I was initially willing to pay. Honestly, it's nothing special and common to what I understand, but there it is. I've had a lot of success with it too. I try to be careful with lowballing because it can backfire. Because on the other end, if someone makes a demand of something way too high, I'll usually not make a counter offer. I'll just walk away. Generally not worth my time to try to muscle someone down from an absurdly high number. If I get someone giving me a reasonable number in good faith, I won't lowball. Do your research before you go in. If you are buying, know what features you want and how much they are worth. Know what features you don't give a hoot about and know what they are worth. If they try to sweeten the deal by throwing in some feature that you don't care about when you know it's really only a $5 bargain, you won't be cow-dazzled by the offer. Attempting to gas 2 religious men from some ancient order, then invading a peaceful planet and setting up a blockade around it. You were right about one thing. OP. The negotiations were short. How to get most things cheaper on sites like Craigslist and Letgo. 1. Have many email accounts. 2. Find a product that you wish to purchase. 3. Use 5 emails to super lowball the seller, lowering what the seller thinks their item is worth. 4. With 6th email, send a more reasonable lowball offer. 5. Get an item for cheaper. 6. Feel like an butthole for steps 3, 5 and pay more than agreed when actually making the transaction. 1. Know whether you are building a long-term mutually beneficial relationship, or if this is a one-time transaction deal. This should color the rest of the negotiation. 2. Be able to explain how the benefit you are offering meets the other party's need and creates value for them. 3. Be able to dispel misconceptions about benefit you are offering. 4. Understand the other party's underlying needs, rather than simply their position. 5. Be aware of anchoring. For example, the first price thrown out generally is the anchor for the rest of the price negotiation and often the perception of value of what is being negotiated over. 6. Be aware that the other person is looking for some kind win. If you can deliver them some sort of win, they will be more likely to agree to your terms. This might mean anchoring the negotiation at high price, and then coming down to the other party's counter offer. Assumptive statements. In sales, my rule is to never ask if they want to buy it. It cannot be a question. That gives them the option to say no. If they say no, I give them another option that offers more flexibility. That way, I'm not the sleazy sales lady, because everybody wins. I also like to flip consignment items. I'd get it cheap, then see the market price was, say, $300 for a purse. I'd list it at $300. But really it's $240 if they give me any resistance. Or if they played dumb and said how much is it, I'd say, it's $300 but I'll give it to you for $240. So I would get the purse on FedUp for $115 in near mint condition, authentic, and then sell it at $240 or sometimes even $300. So basically my tactic was it costs X, but really it's Y. Let me call my wife. I was negotiating a price for tires for my truck. Expensive. His price was way more than the worth of the tires. The guy offered me $50 off, then $100. I needed a lower price than that to buy them. That's a pretty good discount. But let me call my wife and make sure she's cool with it. She's pretty frugal and can be a real pain when I'm buying something expensive. I go outside, put my phone to my ear. I don't actually call her. Pace around for a few minutes, place my hand on my forehead, and pretend to be exasperated. I glance through the window, and the guy is watching me. I come back in and tell him I can't pay that price. He offers me another $100 off. Let me call my wife again to check. I say. I do the same routine as earlier, except this time for a few minutes longer, pacing around and shaking my head. I come back in and tell him, sorry, the price is still too much. I'm going to have to walk away from this one. The salesman, half out of pity and half out of impatience from this tedious situation, offers another $75 off, and I accept and thank him profusely. What I did was dishonest, and I wouldn't do it again, but I didn't have much money at the time and my tires were bald. To be fair, what I said about my wife was true and I knew she would have said no to those prices. Always do your research for your mark. If you are in a position where you know who you will meet, find out clearly about everything. Work the rounds. Go places. Do your research. If applicable, find out who your mark trusts, who are the close associates, and if you have enough time, work on them first before getting to your actual mark. Always call the party on the other end of your negotiation your mark. Know the market value of what you're negotiating for. Know your value for what you're negotiating. Be firm and direct in your reasoning. Walk away if the deal doesn't suit you. Make sure going in you know your BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Essentially, if the other side is playing hardball or won't budge, you need to know what your best case scenario without them is. So in a job scenario, if you are offered $50,000 but are currently making $60,000 and your only concern is money, then your BATNA is the $60,000 job. In the same scenario, you hate your job and are miserable and need to get out, then you need to take all that into consideration when determining your BATNA. It's similar to a walking away point, but with slightly more thought put into it. I was once negotiating to purchase a domain name from a squatter. I couldn't talk the guy down from $250. So I told him I was no longer interested and that I had purchased the same domain, but just with a hyphen between the words for $10. I sent him the hoist information. He promptly dropped the price to $50. Be absolutely consistent with your statements. Do not get distracted by tangential matters. It is perfectly okay to say, I want to discuss that after we finish addressing. Focus argument. I work at a museum and mostly negotiate with children. Give them the illusion of choice. I had one girl that told me she had an infinite amount of questions, and actually ran us half an hour after closing. She helped us close too, but kept asking questions and security was egging us to leave. I told her she had 3 more questions, and just like that infinity became 3. Works with other choices too. Do you want the blue towel or the red towel for your bath instead of ready for your bath? I've seen it 100 times already, but I'll add it in my story here. Walk away. I went to Ensenada, Mexico on a cruise and wanted to get my girlfriend of that time a gift. We were both nerds and I found a dragon carving of fishbone. The guy who was selling it originally wanted $50. I knew I was being ripped off. He wouldn't go lower than $40 in my attempt to negotiate price. So I told him I would wait and come back later if I didn't find anything else. All of a sudden the price dropped to $35. I again declined because I didn't want to pay more than $20 for the statue. The price then dropped to $25. A lot better, but still not for me. So I again declined and began to make my way out of the store. He put his arm across my back and said that I'm very smart. and should be a lawyer someday and made a final offer of $15. I took that offer because it was even less than I wanted to pay. The statue probably only cost $5-10, but I felt accomplished and had gotten a gift that my then girlfriend absolutely loved. I'm a bit late to the party, but there is so much literature surrounding this topic. Have a BATNA. Basically, what is your best alternative to a negotiation? Be sure you know this so you feel comfortable walking away. Be prepared to share some information to allow things to progress, but don't share too much that you end up disadvantaging yourself. There's a theory by Fisher and Urey, principled bargaining, which basically turns a zero-sum game into a win-win scenario. A 50-50 split isn't necessarily the best outcome. If other topics are involved, don't primarily focus on the money. It can often be a massive distraction during negotiations. Anthony Cumia once, hypothetically, said that he would ask for 2,000 hats in his contract, or some ridiculous, and important thing. From there he would negotiate down, like, okay, you won't take 2,000 hats, how about 1,000 hats then? Meanwhile, you don't even need hats, but it's a negotiating point. Dress as sharp as you possibly can. Beautiful clothing and nice grooming is meant to attract the opposite sex and intimidate your enemies. Make them wish to become your ally. Warriors traditionally wore extremely colorful and expensive attire that reflected their status. That and a very subtle and relaxed "why do you think I need you" attitude are extremely useful. Nothing strikes more fear in the hearts of your opponents than aesthetics. Make them afraid of being rejected by you. Imagine that the current negotiation is just a warm-up for the next one, because it actually is. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.